Hey, Sean, what led to the decision to bring Kyrie back, and what changed from when you made the initial decision not to permit him to be a part-time player till now?
Thanks, Michael. The overall environment has changed, as we all know, drastically. It's changed not only from the Nets, it's changed from our staff perspective, it's changed from our players' perspective, it's changed for what's happening outside of Barclays. I walked to the arena today and there's several lines out there for COVID testing, and there's 200, 300 people waiting in line, to be tested. So that's the environment has changed. COVID has done a number on the team and on society in general. So that's certainly changed. Managing our overall player load, that's something we've got to be aware of throughout the course of the season. We've seen the large minutes that our guys have had to endure and play, and we've got to look at what's best for the team, over the course of the season. What hasn't changed is, our team, our staff, our front office and coaching staff and the players' ability to collaborate and evolve with changing circumstances. And that's exactly, what we're dealing with here. Several months ago, we made a decision that was based around what was best for the team. What was best for the team at that point was continuity. And I think we all see that continuity right now over the course of the last week, and whatever the future looks like, maybe out of the window for a while, and we've got to navigate that as best we can. And that's something we've always strived to do, is make the best decision for what's best for the team. That's been our principle the whole way through here, and this was a decision that what's best for the team right now.
In addition to ramping up physically, from a testing standpoint, what hurdles does Kyrie have to cross, to the best of your knowledge, before he's able to return to activities?
There's going to be several guys, as we know, and they're all going to be under a different testing cadence. It's all going to depend on vaccination status. It's going to depend on CT levels. It's going to depend on their testing cadence, symptoms, and so forth. So I think it would be unfair for me to talk about one person in particular, because everybody's case is quite different. It's affecting everybody differently, whether they have, as I said, had vaccines, had not been vaccinated, had booster shots, and to be quite frank, which variant they've caught. So it's a tricky one.
Greg Logan.
Sean, you've talked in the past, frankly, about involving your top players in particular in decisions. So specifically, what input did Kevin Durant and James Harden have into this? And you mentioned player workload. How big of a concern was that for those two?
Yeah, Greg, like I mentioned before, the collaboration piece is really important for us as an organization. We've strived to collaborate as best we can throughout the course of the last 4 or 5 years with any issue, any problem, any set of circumstances we're not sure of. So in this one, 100% we talk to our players. Without this, we're never making a decision without the players being aware of what's coming down the pipeline. And I guess you can ask them at a later date as to their feelings, but everybody was on board with the decision that's being made. And again, they understand the set of circumstances that we're facing here. These are unforeseen circumstances, and I hate to say it, it's almost like we've gone back to 6 months, a year ago, unfortunately, with the cases rising. So hopefully there's some lessons learned from there. And the lessons we're learning from there also deal with the workload, and the workload for our players has been immense. I give our guys a lot of credit, not just Kevin, but the entire roster for how many minutes they've played and with the spirit with which they've played. We know this is a long season that we need to navigate, and we need to make sure we get to the playoffs and get to the season in the best health, best shape possible.
Christian.
Hey, Sean, is there any concern that Kyrie's status as unvaccinated then puts him at even more risk of complication in the event that he does contract COVID-19? Is that something that you guys, discussed before making this decision at all?
We discussed everything here, and I think there's also a risk for Kyrie when a guy comes in and if they're not vaccinated. I don't want to get into those type of discussions, but that's a risk for him coming into this environment, not just the team and so forth. But we're all well aware of the status and his status and moving forward and how we'll navigate this, as best we can.
Hey, Sean, thanks for doing this. Has Kyrie given you any indication now that he's back in the fold that maybe he might consider getting vaccinated down the road? And also, is the expectation for you guys that Kevin and Kyrie probably won't make this West Coast trip?
You know, I have not talked to Kyrie about vaccination status. I don't think that's been appropriate right now. I mean, the times I've gone to see him, these are about, you know, forming bonds and forming friendships and having, you know, conversations about family, sometimes basketball and so forth, like Steve has mentioned in the past. Like, you know, he's talked, but I haven't really talked about basketball, you know. We're trying to continue that camaraderie and so forth. So, you know, when he gets back here, I'm sure he'll have conversations, whether it was myself and Steve or his players and so forth. But, you know, I want to get him back in the fold, and you know, we'll navigate those conversations then.
Alex.
From that, I mean, you guys still have a very good year without Kyrie. First place, you know, top defense, et cetera. Just, do you worry at all about his?
Muted first.
Alex, can you just start your question again, please?
They're still having a very good year without Kyrie, just first place in the East, defense is top 10, et cetera. Given the part-time arrangement, do you worry at all about him having a negative impact on, you know, all the positives that you guys have been able to do without him in the lineup?
No, I think we take some of these positives and we try and build off of them. I mean, Kyrie's been watching our games. We've talked to him about the games, the outcomes, and he's been weighing in on them as well. So, you know, it's great to see. You know, I don't, you know, I'm not concerned about the negative impact. I'm not going into this thinking, you know, what if? This is when you have an opportunity to add a player like this at a juncture like this when dealing with, you know, again, unforeseen circumstances. You know, we're trying to pivot and be as flexible as we can during this moment in time. And again, the decisions being made for what's best for the team right now.
David Aldridge.
Hey, Sean, when you all made the announcement, the initial announcement, it certainly seemed like it was a philosophical decision that you all had just decided as an organization, you did not want to have an unvaccinated player around the team. It did not seem at all that it would be circumstance affected or driven. And I just wonder, was there kind of a disconnect in the messaging there? And if it was going to be circumstance driven, should there have been some sort of caveats attached to the original statements?
You know, David, good question. I think our objective here is to win. Our objective from an organization, from a team, from the GM, from the coach, from the players, everybody knows why they're here is to win basketball games. And at the end of the day, we're sitting here faced with a roster that has been decimated over the course of the last several days. And, you know, I'm forced to make decisions, and I don't make those decisions by myself. You know, we collaborate, like we mentioned before, but in essence, this is the best decision for this team at this juncture right now, that what we're dealing with.
Greg.
Sean, as best I can figure, because Kyrie entered quarantine, he's not going to be able to play on that West Coast trip. And then you have 7 out of 9 at home. And so basically from the time you brought him back, at best he can play in two out of the next 15 games. So does that underline your original concern about the distraction that could be posed by a part-time player?
Well, I'm not sure when there's a great time to integrate somebody new. There's always a learning curve and so forth. The good thing is Kyrie knows our guys. He's been around. So in order for him to be able to practice with us, get back in the swing of things, there's obviously going to be a ramp up. Again, we have not seen him on the court, so I couldn't tell you what physical shape he looks like. I assume he looks pretty decent, but again, until we've seen him amongst our guys. This gives him an opportunity to be around them and continue that collaboration, to continue working on that team chemistry, even though it's going to be in practice. And you know, I really don't want to talk about the hypotheticals of when and if he can come back, because there's a lot of things pending, right, on status for him.
Mark Sanchez.
Hey, Sean, I just want to clarify something. The statement you said, you guys are allowing him back because of the current circumstances with the team so depleted. As the season goes on, are you going to evaluate those circumstances? You know, if your guys return to full health, or do you see him being, you know, a part-time player for the rest of the season and the playoffs?
Yeah, good question, Mark. I think that's, again, you know, a little bit of a hypothetical. I'm not sure what's around the corner. Like, I don't know any of us would have predicted where we would be standing right now, what we would be facing, not only the Brooklyn Nets, but the larger society in whole. So I think it's a little bit of like, let's navigate what's going on right now in front of us, which is the game tonight, but then let's look at what happens in a week, 2 weeks, a month, 2 months, and just see where the team is at that point. But, we're going into this, going to embrace Kai and get him back in the fold here.